posibil ca oameni care au ieșit de acolo să moară după 12 zile?
Deci, practic, ei au ascuns lucrurile astea, da?
Dacă nu spunem lucrurilor pe nume, suntem complici.
Povestea e atât de halucinantă încât mi-e teamă că o să părem nebuni.
Sunt ministrul sănătății. Dar primul lucru pe care trebuie să-l faci ca să câștigi sau să recâștigi încrederea cuiva este să încetezi să-l minți.
Omor oameni.
Nu ne putem permite treaba asta.
Și cum ne poate rezolva chestia asta?
Și noi am avut o încredere oarbă în autorități.
Iar ce vedem aici, de când am venit, dar tot ce e sub este putred.
Hello, I'm Ann Hornaday, the Washington Post's chief film critic. Welcome to our Oscar Spotlight series. We are putting the spotlight on the 5 films nominated for Academy Awards for Best Documentary Feature. And today we're speaking about Collective, a documentary out of Romania. Joining me now are the film's director, Alexander Nanau, and Cătălin Tolontan, the investigative journalist whose work is the basis of this incredibly powerful film. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having us. I dress like that as a bingo announcer because for us as a journalist, the presence in front of the readers of the Washington Post is like a night of the Oscar Awards, really. I say this not because I don't go to the LA ceremony because there are no seats, and it's fair because the restricted pandemic ceremony was more or less one, but really because this incongruous cross-Skype between the newsroom of a Romanian sports daily and the curiosity and the right to know of a global audience make us feel like the night of the Oscar Awards.
That means the world. It means the world coming from you. And anybody who has seen your work and the way you do it in this film understands that the honor is truly ours. So thank you both for being here. And Alexander, congratulations. You have earned Romania's first Oscar nomination, and not just one nomination for Best Documentary Feature, but for Best International Feature as well. So congratulations 2 times over.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it is a great honor, and means also a lot, not only for sure for the Romanian cinema, because Romanian cinema has shown its quality since many years around the world, but also because it is this story that really is so important for the Romanian society.
Indeed, and I'd like for you to tell us just a little bit. We did learn the sort of outline of the story in that trailer, but so let's refresh some memories here. A lot of us do remember that 2015 fire in the nightclub called Collective. It was a Bucharest nightclub in Romania. 27 lives were lost, but then the story deepened. And so could you just explain to us briefly what happened and what you cover in the film?
Yeah, so the starting point was basically what happened after the fire. Many people took the streets in many cities around Romania, mostly a young generation demonstrating against the political class of their parents' world, basically, a political class of populism, incompetence, and corruption. And on top of that came the manipulation that took care in the healthcare system that they can treat these burn patients, which was a big lie, which was done systematically by politicians, healthcare officials, and doctors. And many more people died in hospitals because they could not be treated properly, basically. So from that on, I wanted to try to understand power, who these people are in power that use their power to manipulate and knowingly killing people, although they promised everybody and the parents that they will rescue them and have all the medical preparation to do that. So when we saw that Cătălin's team is investigating the healthcare system and the power, we thought maybe that's the best way for an observational documentary, not only to see the victims and their stories, but to try to understand power through the eyes of investigative journalism.
And that is so fascinating to me. It looks, from the way the film is structured, it looks like you got in really early in terms of covering Cătălin's investigation. Is that true? So his investigation and the team's investigation was already underway, and you just zoomed right in with your cameras, or how did that? Tell us a little bit about how you, the logistics of all of that.
Yeah, we became aware of the team at the Gazeta through two investigations. The first one was on the fire department. They were lying that they didn't know that the club existed when it actually was a popular venue, and it was a venue that they authorized to function. And the second one was when they found out that the only really equipped burn unit in the country was not giving surgery to these patients as they said, but it was closed down. And so when we approached them and stepped in, they were basically just about to find out and also publish about the hospital infections that existed.
And Cătălin, you and your team are the central characters to this amazing film, which we'll get into this later. It unfolds like a thriller, like a classic journalism thriller. And you get to the heart of this medical scandal involving a disinfectant. And this is all the more astonishing because you're a sports newspaper, I understand. Is that right?
Yeah, this is right. But we have working in investigation for more than 20 years, and we have some results. Of course, for us, results mean information for the public. But sometimes for the public, results means punishment for the corruptions. And the people trust us. We gain the trust of the people in time. Time means not months or even years, but decades. This is the true bound between the journalist and the public all over the world. And they came to us with some tips, some news just after the fire in 2 or 3 days. And we do our job because, I saw your colleagues write under my name, investigative journalist. I don't know if it's something like this. We are all news journalists first, yes. And every big investigation is in the first stage, in its inception, only a small news. And if you are struggling, seeking for the facts, not for the truth, because I think it's a very interesting distinction between the facts and the truth. Okay, if you are seeking for the facts, maybe you are going after a big case of investigation.
But it starts with the facts. That's a wonderful lesson. That's a wonderful journalistic lesson that we should all be reminded of. This film addresses.
Sorry, if I may, and but your audience from US know very well this kind of need, because I saw the first speech of President Biden, and I think it was the first speech in the US and maybe the democratic country's history in which the phrase "facts" was applause, was collect the applause from the people, from the audience, or facts themselves, as President Biden says. This is our society right now. We need facts. We need facts.
And we need transparency. And it's interesting, my colleague, Margaret Sullivan, has a column just today about a study that shows that for a lot of American citizens, they don't value facts and transparency the way journalists would value those values. And so there's an interesting disconnect, which makes it all the more interesting to me that the Romanian citizens, obviously, like you said, you had built up trust and accountability with them so that they felt like they could come to you and get response. But did you sense among them, were they cynical about their institutions, or did this come as a complete shock? Because the institutional rot goes sort of throughout Romanian society. So tell me a little bit about the citizens and their level of cynicism about institutions.
Oh, this is very, very interesting discussion because, 5 years ago, Martin Barron, the former editor of Boston Globe, wrote an article in Washington Post, just in the day of Oscar Awards 5 years ago. And he wrote something like this: I'm in spotlight, but it's not about me, it is about journalism, the power of journalism, he says. If I may add, I think I'm in collective, but it's neither about me nor the power of journalism. It's about the right, the need, and the struggle of the public to have access to facts in order to ensure the maintenance of democracy, and then the maintenance of institution, of course, because we have a lot of debates in our team with Alex. Just today we have a debate. And he told me, you always quote too much, but this is my profession. I have to quote. And I read in an Indian newspaper, First Post is the name, the comparison, and you made also this kind of comparison in your review about collective last year, about Friedrich Weissman, sorry for the pronunciation, and Alexander Nanau. And I come back to your question about the bound between people and institution and democracy, yes? And the magic of cinema, which is capable to put these kind of layers together. And the Indian journalist wrote something like this: Weissman are working on in one institution only. About university sometimes, for Berkeley was the name of the movie. Now City Hall was the most recent Weissman movie. But Alexander Nanau, says the Indian journalist, work on the more horizontal layer of the democracy. And I think something like this: okay, first it's about pillars. It's about legislature, it's about media, it's about city halls. And the second way, which is, I think it's proper and very reliable, shows in collective with the huge work and talent of Alexander. It's about the bricks of democracy. And for me, this is the definition of the collective movement, because I think for more than 1 year, what is collective? It's about despair, or it's about hope? It's about corruption, or it's about incompetence? It's about the abuse of the power, or it's about integrity? It's about the involvement of the citizen, or the despair of the democracy? I think it's about the bricks of the democracy, the day by day concrete cement of democracy.
I couldn't agree more. That's very, very well said. And ultimately, it's the bricks are the people, and that actually sets up a clip. I'd like to play a clip that really gets to the emotional core of this, and I think that's another gift of this film, is that along with this incredible investigation and the sort of thriller aspects, Alexander, you never lose sight of the human cost and the human stakes. So let's play this clip that shows the heartache behind these losses, and then we'll come back. Let's watch.
Pentru pe cineva drag, Mădălina. Tragic, dureros pentru toți. Din păcate, sistemul este un futregai. Cum e posibil ca oameni care au ieșit de acolo să moară după 12 zile?
Bună ziua! Băiatul meu, în data de 4, noi am avut acceptul de la Cahaviena să-l transportăm. Nu au vrut să semneze cei de la spital, e vorba de cei care conduceau spitalul respectiv, spitalul universitar. A ajuns până la urmă pe 7 seara la Viena cu bacterii peste tot, în tot corpul. La întrebarea noastră de ce și-au bătut joc de el, mi s-a dat un răspuns dintr-o eroare de comunicare, a băiatul meu.
Alexander, what has the film meant to those parents? Do they feel, I mean, it seems almost trivial to ask if a movie has brought them extra layers of accountability or an extra feeling of having been seen and heard, but has the movie helped them process the trauma and feel like they have been seen and heard?
I think that, the toughest screening I ever had in my career until now was the screening when we finished the film. We invited all families and victims of the fire to see the film in the same room in the cinema. And it was tough because I didn't know, it was such a test for us to see if these people accept what we have done as their story. And it was a relief afterwards because they came and said, like, this is the most realistic thing we have seen about what we went through. I was for sure a bit afraid if they might say, it's not enough about us, it's too much about journalism and politics. But basically, I think that they felt that this description of society and of these different forces that basically influence your life and what happened to them, I think that it reflected in a way how they felt all this time after it happened, how many different forces basically, people manipulated them, part of the press failed them, all these different layers of injustice. Until today, there's no final sentence to find the people that are responsible for the fire or for the mistreatment of these kids in the hospitals, or there is no final sentence for any compensation. So you have these young people, many of them students, just started jobs, maybe mutilated by the fire. There's no compensation. They live, they can't really live a life because some of them maybe can't do their job anymore. And then after, in this whole award season and after the nominations, Narcis, the father that we have just seen, has written on Facebook that, like kind of a letter to his son, that, we couldn't help you because we didn't know better when they lied to us, but at least now other people can see the story, and one of our greatest wishes was always to share your story and help other people not go through the same thing. Hopefully they can realize in time when they're manipulated or what rights they have.
Absolutely, and that goes for everyone, including Americans. I mean, this was so relevant to our own I mean, it's a universal story and a cautionary tale. And I think another sort of irony or a contradiction is that on the one hand, I'm so impressed that Romania submitted this film, and that this was Romania's choice to submit to the Academy. It's now been nominated. So you have this kind of strange contradictory situation where this film that's kind of an indictment of institutional laxness that is still going on, as you point out, is also being celebrated. I mean, are you getting support from the Romanian people and Romanian government?
One has to say that the fact that this film was chosen is the result of the Oscar rules. The AMPUS rules are very clear. It has to be an independent commission that decides upon the film, not the government, not the state institution. So the state institution names in Romania 5 independent film journalists, film critics, and they cast a secret ballot, right? And that's how the film got nominated. And we have faced quite some difficulties with the state institutions because our film was chosen. They tried to cut any funding for the campaign. I had my ride with them. After they couldn't reverse the decision, they looked for in the AMPUS rules. They told me, like, we looked at everything, and next year we will let the open public vote for the film. And after they couldn't harm it for real, they tried to embrace it, and they tried to award me a Medal of Honor for my merits to culture. And I said, no, thank you. I mean, that's not going to work because it is a government that, since the pandemic has started, has done nothing for the cultures. There's not a single financial mechanism to support the institutions that were closed or the artists. So I could not just play this fake game with them.
Yes, you are so right, but sorry, 1 second. But this is a proof that institution matters in a democracy. Even if in a political bias environment like Romania or like UK or like US, if you have institutions and you protect them as citizen and community, they are working better and better.
It depends always on the individual, also in institutions. It depends so much how well, as we see also in the film. It depends sometimes on one person that does not abide to corruption, does not abide to what the system has created as misusing its power. And I think that's so important. That's also what I think was enforced in myself doing this film, that it comes down to everyone's life attitude. If your life attitude, if your attitude is right, this will, spread to other people, and that's the way you can turn things around or, repair in a way a society.
Exactly.
Just opposite for me. It's not about one person or about persons. I think it's about institution. And your movie Collective, it's about institution, because we saw a lot of institution, like press conference. This is institutions in Romania. We have some function between our citizen and the states.
How about
even
I
if of course you are right, and this is a bitter paradox, because Romania, as Anne says, Romania put on the Oscar list such a critical movie about their reality.
I want to get a clip in of Cătălin being interviewed about his investigation, and then come back on the other side, and we can keep talking about these issues.
L-am alături pe jurnalistul Cătălin Tolontan, care s-a implicat profund în ancheta acestui caz care a schimbat un întreg guvern.
Am adus, aș vrea să vadă oamenii, pe telespectatorii televiziunii publice, această hârtie, să-mi spuneți unde pot arăta. E aici o cifră 1,17, asta e concentrația unei substanțe active dintr-un dezinfectant. Pe etichetă este de 12. Este diluat de 10 ori. Și la capătul procesului sunt cei mai periculoși viruși din toată Europa. Acum ne este foarte clar, a existat o minciună instituțională la nivelul statului român, la toate palierele de comunicare, că tot ceea ce au făcut a fost perfect, că sunt condiții ideale în spitale, ca în Germania, ca să citez. Așa s-a spus, ca în Germania. Și noi am avut o încredere oarbă în autorități. Și aici mă includ ca jurnalist. Și am spus-o de foarte multe ori. În momentul în care presa ajunge să facă reverențe autorităților, autoritățile se vor purta rău cu oameni, cetățeni. Întotdeauna se întâmplă asta, prea în lume, s-a întâmplat și în cazul nostru.
So as I said earlier, I actually think it's both and. I think this shows institutions are important, but it also shows individuals like you, Cătălin, are important. Institutions don't work unless the people who populate them have integrity and courage, which you displayed throughout this film and which other figures did too. But have you experienced repercussions for your work? Are you still able to do the work you need to do in the way you need to do it?
Yes, and I think our first fear is not about states, about big pharma companies, about mobs. No, our first fear is about to abandon the facts, to mistakes, yes, to make mistakes. Because the people feels when the journalist abandon facts for the confirmation or for the applause sometimes. And when we abandon news for the entertainment, I think here is the magic of the movie, because not only of the collective movie, because I saw the Dissident, I saw the Forsama, the Cave in last years, and I think when the facts become fiction and entertainment, as today all over the world, I think the people go to the fiction world of cinema to seeking the facts. Of course, documentary movie is not journalism, and you wrote a lot about this kind of bound and this kind of difference between journalism and documentary fiction, documentary movie. But the people seems so impressed and so emotional struggle in them, and they are seeking for the truth and for the facts in this kind of movie. I don't know how, because it's magic for me as journalist. Alexander and the other directors works in this kind of style. I don't know how really. It's a miracle for me, and put the people in front of the facts.
We're grateful for the work. I want to very quickly, Alexander, I must not let you go, and we are almost out of time, but I do want to ask about the health minister, Vlad, who's one of the protagonists in this film. Could you give us a very quick update on where he is right now?
Yeah, so, things changed a bit in Romania in the last 2 years. I think people voted differently. We have some reformatory parties, and he became part of one of these parties 2 years ago. They won enough votes to become part of a coalition government, and he became Minister of Health last Christmas, so 3 months ago. And since then, for sure, scandals around COVID have happened that were not so much his fault, because they came with the mismanagement of the system before. But today he was basically kicked out by the prime minister with no warning. The prime minister decided that Vlad Voiculescu should not be anymore the Minister of Health, because he is, I think they think he is too weak. But that had many things that happened before. Cătălin was also involved in this. He published, the team of Vlad published data about vaccination, and the journalists could discover that there were more secret vaccine stations for the elite, so to say, than for the vulnerable people and for the open public. And they were forced by that to open vaccine stations to the public, those secret ones. And a lot more things that come with, intentions to transparize how the money is spent in the system. And so many think that these are the real reasons why he was kicked out, because he started to transparize the system. And transpirization in a system that in crisis enriches many people is maybe the last thing power really wants.
Yes, but I have to keep the critical distance as journalist between me and the Ministry of Health. And from my point of view, he is not a victim anymore because he made a lot of mistakes also. Of course, he have a lot of enemies from the corruption layer of the Romanian society. But I think this is also the proof from the main message from collective movie, because the highest position in democracy is not a superhero like a health ministry. It's a citizen. The citizens are in the highest position in a democracy.
That is the perfect way to end this fascinating program, which I wish could go on forever, but we're out of time. Alexander, Cătălin, thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations again on your nomination.
Thank you for having us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.